Called Strange Powers, and this is Kerthy Fix, and we're so fortunate to have her here in the studio with us.
Definitely. So we're just going to start with some general questions. What inspired you to do this film, and what did you want your audience to take from it?
Well, Gail O'Hara, the other director on the film, and I knew each other from college, and we actually worked on a student newspaper together, and we were both big fans of music and film. And Gail had moved to New York and was friends with Stephen and Claudia and was taking photographs, and she had a very influential fanzine called Chick Factor. And for about 10 years she was really kind of chronicling indie pop and this little world that the magnetic fields were clearly part of. And when I moved to New York, she had been shooting some footage, and I had a film degree from UT, University of Texas in Austin, and I knew she was shooting with them. I was like, let's look at the footage, and we looked at the footage, and it was clear that we needed to shoot more seriously. She had a full-time job as a professional journalist, and I was working in documentary, so we kind of joined up. But I think what attracted us both is that Stephen and Claudia in particular are such interesting, funny people, and everyone in the band is extremely intelligent and witty, and you just want to know what they're going to say and do next. And I think because the music is so smart and funny and really responds to our age, you know, we want to wallow in our sentimental feelings of love or whatever, but Stephen's songs let us sort of have an ironic distance to those feelings. You know, you can kind of be totally heartbroken, and then something in the song will just make fun of that feeling, so you can make fun of yourself in a way for having that feeling. So I think the combination of those characters and his songs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in journalism, he's a little bit of a notorious subject, because they said he's a bit hard to interview. Did you find anything like that in making the film, or were there boundaries that were set out at the beginning of what you could or couldn't say?
Well, we knew from the beginning when we first met with them that we were going to focus on their professional lives, not their personal lives. So, you know, I guess maybe some documentarians might have been put off by that, but I felt like that I was curious enough about Stephen's process. You know, he has this kind of peculiar lo-fi process that produces quite sophisticated, and you know, people compare him to those Tin Pan Alley songwriters or to like classical. He could have been writing MGM musicals. So in many ways he's writing like the best of traditional classic pop songs. So he's using these lo-fi methods, but making this kind of hi-fi sound. Mm-hmm. So I was really curious about the process, and also how does this guy who's not, you know, really able to plug in these sort of social networking, like 10-minute increments to popular culture, how is he being translated to the wider world? Well, it's Claudia. Claudia is the one who's super social, and Gail and I saw quite clearly, just watching them, you know, as friends, that Claudia's influence was really the reason why Stephen's music was on Merge Records, for instance. What a huge thing for him to be on Merge, and then None Such. You know, those labels and those relationships, Claudia is really doing a lot to build those. So I think we were really fascinated by those things.
Is that why you would say because you spend a lot of time focusing on the stage and the interaction between both of them before they even start a song? Would you say that that's why you really wanted to focus on those intricate moments of, not emotion between them, but of like translation of their relationship? Because you said you want to focus on the professional, but at the same time, through this professional atmosphere, they're getting a lot of the personal vibes through it. So
I think that's really insightful, yeah, because they weren't going to say, you know, Stephen's never going to say, I love and need Claudia desperately, right? But you just see through those kinds of, like someone that's been with you since you were 14 is going to banter with you, you know, like a brother or sister, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that shows love and relationship, even though they will never say outright what it is they feel about each other. You're right, we totally see that in their interactions.
Just to follow on that, why didn't you go into more detail about like both of their past, like personal past? Because I think that would have actually translated something really interesting between the characters. I know there's a mention of Stephen's father leaving when he was young, and so why didn't you go further into that?
Well, we were actually worried that they may not, that Stephen in particular would not have let us put that in the film. So we wanted to address it, and we did, you know, even asking him those personal questions about his father felt invasive. And I remember when we were talking to him, we weren't sure if he was going to kind of shut us down. And in fact, you asked about whether he was difficult to film with. He's actually very neutral. Yeah, if he doesn't want to answer something, he's just not going to answer it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sort of, there's a neutrality about it that actually when you're around him a lot, you become very comfortable because you're like, well, he'll let me know. If he doesn't want to do it, he'll be very clear. So I guess we felt like we had made this agreement with them, with Stephen and Claudia, that it was going to be professionally based. So anyone who wants to know more about Stephen's father is free to go online and totally check out his website. There's plenty there, so, you know.
And musicians are often subjects of films like John Cash or Ray Charles in biopics, or there are lots of documentaries about different musicians. As a filmmaker, what do you think makes them such meaty subjects to, and like what makes an audience want to watch them on the screen as opposed to just listening to an album?
Well, I think certain songwriters, you know, I would put Stephen in the category of like a Willie Nelson or Bruce Springsteen in his ability to channel his culture in a particular way.
Mm-hmm.
And so those people have interesting lives. And I think it was Lucinda Williams who said, after she had been dropped from a major label and they hadn't put out a record, she said something to the effect of like, it takes a lot of living to write good songs, you know, and time has to pass.
Mm-hmm.
So while we don't know a lot about Stephen's life, his attitude, I just thought this was something to celebrate. Here's someone who is resistant to the demands of sort of invasive, you know, pop culture demands that pop stars be really revelatory. You know, Rufus Wainwright's going to be very comfortable in that space. He's going to be really revealing about his personal life. But I actually liked that Stephen was like, no, I don't want to do that, and I'm not going to sort of squeeze myself into this pop formula. And I think that eccentricity is something to kind of hold up as like, hey, you're going to have to sort of fight for more elbow room to be who you are, but being who you are is good and interesting. So I don't know if that's really an answer to your question, but I think interesting songs are created from interesting lives, I guess.
Definitely. It's interesting because he's become sort of a cult celebrity, and yet he doesn't really buy into anything of like the sort of cookie cutter. What we see is like what would get you on the cover of a magazine or an article in the New York Times. And I know Marina was interested in like why you chose certain celebrities like Sarah Silverman.
Yeah, Sarah Silverman and Lemony Snicket.
To speak about him when there's so many people who definitely want to sing his praises. What was it about those certain characters?
They were willing. I don't know. I mean, that's the real answer. Like Sarah Silverman came to an LA show with Jimmy Kimmel and came backstage, and Stephen, we were like, Stephen, Sarah Silverman wants to meet you, and he was like, who's Sarah Silverman? Like, he doesn't think anything's funny after 1960, you know. So, and Neil Gaiman is a good friend of his, and they had collaborated on Coraline and the theater production. Daniel Handler plays with them all the time and is a good friend, and they had collaborated. I mean, these people were just around and interested, But I also felt like they said something too as a collection. You know, these writers and intellectuals and humorists say something. Does it read that way when you watch the film, like as a collection? Is there?
Well, what was particularly interesting about those choices is that they translate their feelings through different mediums versus like the musical medium. So it was interesting that you picked like the comedian, the writer, and I thought that was actually really well done. That you have different people in different areas commenting on his work too. So that was really strong, I thought.
Definitely. And with Lemony Snicket, he's also created sort of a persona and like a veil between his personal and his public, because he has this extra sort of created character. And I guess Stephen has a stage presence that people don't really know the person behind him. So that read very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Stephen, I mean, unlike some pop stars, he's just not interested in the creative project of persona. You know, Lady Gaga is like the epitome. Like, she's all about look and persona. She's brilliant at it. I think it's super interesting. Stephen's just not interested. He's a songwriter. He wants to write songs. He doesn't really want to do this sort of like da-da-da-da-da-da stuff, you know.
And one last question to wrap it up. Are you working on anything now that we can look forward to, or what's your next project?
Well, I think folks will be really excited to see a film about the band La Tigra. It's called La Tigra on Tour, though the name may change. It's been showing as a work in progress at some film festivals around the world, actually. I think it'll show at Lady Fest next month. But hopefully it'll release in the spring with probably a new title. But it's a La Tigra like concert tour documentary that we did, and it's really good and really fun. So yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. And everyone be sure to watch out for Strange Powers about the magnetic fields. It's a great documentary.
Film Forum.